So hello everybody and welcome to the first ever JavaScript tutorial on this channel. I've been getting a lot of requests to cover a lot more languages. I've just finished my Java tutorial, so I've decided, hey, let's do JavaScript now. There's a lot of things to cover, so a lot more episodes related to code, and if I want to work as a full stack developer somewhere, I need to know JavaScript. Obviously in that position I want to go, so that's what I'm planning to do. I want to be like a developer that works with JavaScript and such, because it's not like a one of the easiest languages, but it's definitely one of the easier ones to learn, basically. However, I want to preface this with something. This tutorial series is not sponsored by anybody, but only by myself. I put a lot of time and effort to make sure that everyone learns what they need to learn. So I've included in the repository down below these 4 files, with the first 2 being here, which is the 0-sample.html and 0-sample.js. The 0.sample.html file is open up here, as you can see. Pretty much what it has is a standard HTML file, which I can show you now. I haven't gotten it open yet. No problem, we can easily open it. So 0.sample is pretty much what it will do if you decide to use it as a sample, to continue with these coding sessions. Because if I open up the code, you'll notice it had to say a paragraph, but it did not. It said hello world. That's the magic of JavaScript already. I'll explain everything as we go along, but I just want to mention that you can use this as a base. In today's video, I'm going to actually explain how you can write JavaScript code and how we are going to make it so that we have like a separate file instead of having to put everything into this one HTML file, which isn't pretty at all. So pretty much the reason why anybody should use JavaScript is that it can be used to make the backend, all the functions of the website, to make it work, basically. So what a lot of people don't realize that there's actually a lot of stuff going on in the background, for example, on my website. So you might see yeah, sure, you got all these fancy buttons and stuff, but there is one exception to this. I do use jQuery and such, but there's one that I'm particularly proud of, and that is, well, I shouldn't be that proud of it, but that is this button right here, this menu button. Once you click it, it opens up this navigation bar and it gives you any option what to do. But how did I achieve it? How did I achieve it so that when I click it, it brings this up, and when I click this X, it closes? That's all thanks to JavaScript. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to open up the code of the website real quick. So once you load in, what it does by default, it calls my scripts that I've embedded into it. I'm going to show you in a minute how to do that. I just want to explain the code. So once you go in, you'll notice here in the style, this site nav thing, which is this thing right here. Notice how it changes from, can you even see it though? Okay, hold on, let me zoom in. So notice how it changes its width, yeah? I close it, width 0 pixels. Open it, width 45%. How does it do it? How did I do it so it changes automatically? That's all thanks to JavaScript. Let me show you what I did. So if we decide to scroll this out a little and go to sources, this is the script that does it. It's called menubutton.js on my website. And what I have here is I call a function called openNav, and what it does, it basically changes the width to 35% once the button is clicked. However, I have also a close button function defined right below it. So what that does, ignore the Google Analytics stuff, that's only for me. So pretty much what I have here is the close nav button. The close nav button is tied to this X. Once I press it, it should change the width to 0%. Therefore, saying in the index file, where is it? Down here, the width should be set to 0% or 0 pixels once I click the exit button. Watch. I'm going to zoom in on that. so you guys can see it. So watch this, yeah, from 35, once I click it, it should go to 0, and it does, goes to 0 pixels. So that's coolio and all, but that's just one example. I use JavaScript to even generate this section, but I'm going to cover it once we get to it. So if you decide to open the zero sample.html file now, you'll notice that instead of saying the paragraph thing, it says hello world. I'm going to cover why that does it in a sec. First, let me go part by part about like why it's all done this way. So the file that you'll see in the description, this one-html file that I have prepared here, it's a basic HTML site, like really basic, no graphics, no nothing, you know, we do not need those for now at least. So what are we doing here? Well, what we're doing is we are, in fact, hold on, I'm trying to think of something. I just have to change something real soon. No biggie, I can change it while I'm talking. So pretty much what's going on here is that we have a paragraph here with the ID text. I'll explain why it has an ID text real soon, just bear with me. And it has set a paragraph, so if I were to, you know, open this page, reload it, all it would say is a paragraph, which is what we want, obviously. But that's not all of it, actually. So, yeah, I'm clicking stuff, ignore me. Yeah, that's that, can get rid of this. Yoink. Hope I did not broke anything or break anything, because that would be sad. So anyway, so pretty much what I'm trying to do here with this file is, what we want to do is we want to make it so that it changes text, which is like a really simple thing. Now you might remember I mentioned that we are going to use a separate file for this. So let's first talk about this separate file before we talk about implementing it. Or actually, let's talk about implementing it first. So there are multiple ways you can implement a JavaScript file. However, one that I found that has worked 99% of the time without any issues is that the way you call a script, it's really simple. I'm going to get rid of these comments right here and explain the syntax real quick. So you'll notice that I have here script tag, a open script tag and a closed script tag. So this is how you would call a script in JavaScript, like in HTML, how you would call your script. Normally, you could just put your code in here and it would work, but I'm going to force you to use this method instead. One, it will make your code seem a lot clearer, and two, you can have it like in a separate file, so we can just focus on one file instead of just, you know, working inside of our HTML file and making it bigger and less clean, which is not what you want, and trust me on that, that's not what you want by any means. So yeah, I'm just testing out things, don't mind me. So pretty much what I'm trying to do here is, yeah, it's working still the same way, is pretty much what we're doing here is we're calling the script itself. However, it's not gonna do anything because our script doesn't have anything in it. So if even after this little change, our script is now called, but even after this little change, it's not gonna do anything. Watch this. I'm going to refresh the page. Nothing's happening, nothing is changing, it's still the same thing. So it still says a paragraph. If you cannot see it, I can zoom in. It still says a paragraph. So here's what we're gonna do. In order to change any form of an element in our HTML site, we need to use something called a, I would say like a display. JavaScript can pretty much display data in various different ways. We can either use the inner HTML, which is used by most people as a simple example, or we could use document write, which will pretty much write out an entire section, which is what I use to write out the section for my YouTube videos on my website. or we can use window alert, which will show you an alert box, or we could use console log. I'm going to use all 4 of these methods just to show you what's going on with them. And I'm going to show a possible way with which we can, you know, make each and every one of them interact separately, or even have all 4 of them inside of one JS file, so you guys can toy around with it, click a few buttons, which is what we're going to do now. We're going to first create a few buttons, assign them something, and I'm going to explain everything as I'm going. First off, I want to show you something really neat. Remember how I said we can use the inner HTML thing to change to change pretty much any form of text or variable on the website? I'm going to show a simple example of this. We go back into our JS file, and here's what we're gonna do. You want to type in document dot, and then you want to type in get, and then as you can see we have the element by ID. This is important because if you remember, I'm going to put these double quotes in here and return to this, is that we have set this an ID. The ID that we've set it is text, and this is important. If I wanted to finish writing that function in this file, in our JS file, and remove the text, nothing's gonna change. It will still be the same. By incorporating the ID tag here, we're changing a set item on our web page, which is what we want. So to do that, you just type in document.getElementById, and then you type in the ID. The ID here is text in my example. So type in text. But that's still not all. We want to use the inner HTML property, which defines the HTML content basically. So it's inside an HTML. So we do dot, and we type in inner HTML. And that's still not it. We need to let it know what we want to change it to. So as you may have noticed, I just written out these double quotes again. Now I write into what text I want to change it. So let's say hello world, you know, because it's our first app. I'm going to change it to hello world because why not? So what should happen right now is if I now run the page, I reload it, it should change its text to hello world. As you can see, it does. It says hello world. So basically what we've done here is it still loads with the A paragraph, with the normal paragraph thing, but we are changing the element here. Now, this is good and dandy, but I'm going to teach you a little thing about buttons, and I'm going to show you all 4 different methods that you can use to change or manipulate text in a few different properties here. So, to use a button, it's really easy. We go back into our HTML file. I'm going to show you something really neat here. I'm just going to move it slightly down here. I'm actually going to insert here a break so we can have it separated. And what we're going to do here is we're going to define our button. Now, to define a button in HTML is really easy. I'm just going to write this out and do this. So that's technically our button, but it's still not enough. We need to let it know which type it is. So the type of button that I want to use is a regular button. And I want it to do something when I click on it. So when I want to do it something, when I click on it, I use a function or a parameter called onClick. And onClick pretty much tells it, hey, what should I do when you click on me? This is where we return to our script, and I'm going to explain a few things to you guys. So remember how I said that this might be an ideal way to do things? It's actually not the case. We can actually have multiples of these in here and separate them for each button. So look closely what I'm going to do here. I'm going to I'm going to make a function here because we want to do like something when we click on it for each and every button. So instead of having to define like 4 different JavaScript files and possibly not making it work, it's easier to just define a separate function for this. So what we do, we type in function and give it a name. For example, I'm gonna call it what do I want to call it? Let's call it btn, like button, and then function, button function 1. Let's do 1. And then you want to put those squiggly ones. There we go. And this is our function divide. No, it's not. We're still missing something. Boom, regular brackets. So I'm going to do something to make it look prettier now, just indent it. So pretty much what we've done here is we've defined ourselves a function here, and this is separate for our button. This is where we use the inner HTML. So to use it, I'm just gonna copy the title of this function. I'm just gonna copy this, go back to our index.html file, and here on click, all I do is I put in the title of the function, which is button function 1. Oh, ignore the any, I don't know how it says that, ignore that. And here I'm going to say, like, entice the user, like, click me or button 1 or something. Let's say, oops, I did not realize that. So button space 1 for button 1, why not? So what we should see is we should see a button appear on our form, and it will be a regular button, and it will call our function button function 1, which is defined to change the text from a paragraph to hello world. Let's see that. So I'm gonna refresh, and you might notice we now have a button here. It says button 1. We have still a paragraph here. So once I click the A button, watch what happens to this text. Boom, it's been changed to hello world. So now that you know how to define a function, we can in fact define multiple buttons, so I can show you those multiple other methods. So this is one method with which you can do stuff, but we can also write something else. We can also add, like, you know, different things to it. We do not have to, like, you know, be stuck with just one method. Let's say I want to add another form of text to this site. Another form of text. Well, you can do that really simply. Well, let's go back to our code real quick. And let me just switch here so you can see my face. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to define another function. So I'm going to copy this syntax for the function. I'm going to get rid of all of this. We're not gonna need it anymore. Instead, we're going to do document.write, and we want to tell it what we want to write out. So what we want is, you know, say something like a string or a number or something. I'm going to write out a text, and it's going to say, it's going to be button function 2. In fact, it will say button 2 was pressed, for example, and add 3 dots. Why not? So now that we've defined that, we are still going to be able to use only one function because we only have one button defined. To solve that, I'm going to copy this button syntax, and we're going to place it in here. Here I'm going to change the button function 1 to button function 2, and button 1 title to button 2. I'm going to save it and show you that it in fact does work, or at least it should work. So now that I refresh it, you'll notice we now have 2 buttons on our site. The first one changes the paragraph text to hello world. The second one writes everything and says button 2 was pressed. That's the problem with the function write. It pretty much removes everything that's on here, so make sure to press it only if necessary. So yeah, that's not it. Pretty much like removes everything. The document write pretty much, after it's loaded, it will like delete all of the existing HTML. So all our complicated code will just get replaced with this one form of text. So yeah, that's that. We can also use window alerts. Window alerts are basically a alert box that will get displayed when clicked. So you pretty much know how it all goes. So I'm going to copy this and make another like button function. This time will be button function 3. So button 3 is to be in order. And I'm going to copy this and I'm going to change a few things around here. So I'm going to change this to button function 3, obviously. Remember, we're still using just one JS file. And instead of document write, we're going to use something different. We're going to use window.alert. Window.alert is something that will like display an alert message. And we're going to do button 3 was pressed. So what it should do, it should pop up with a alert box saying, hey, button 3 was pressed. So let's do that. Let's refresh. You can see we have a button 3 now. Watch what happens if I press button 3. See, we got a message. It says button 3 was pressed. Press button 1, it replaces it with hello world. Press button 2, replaces everything with button 2 was pressed. Just like we've defined in this one file. So that's that. But there's also, I think, one more method. And that is the console log. So pretty much the console log is one of the more known ones and one of the simpler ones to use, because it is text built into your web browser. It's a console built into your web browser that you can use to display messages or warnings and such. Here's what we're gonna do. We're going to define a very last button here, a very last one. And it will be button function 4. You guessed it, button function 4. And we're going to do it like this. So now what I need to do is I need to copy this text, and we're going to change a few things around here. So I'm going to get rid of this, and we're going to use a console log. So once I type it out, you will soon see what I mean. And I'm going to explain what the console log thing is, or what the method is. So pretty much, also I need to change this to button 4 was pressed. So pretty much this is all defined, this all like works, so we should be able to go back here, you know, refresh the page, and this is what you get. You press button 1, it changes to hello world. Press button 2, everything gets erased. So again, press button 1, hello world. Press button 3, doesn't work. That's because I haven't changed this, it doesn't know what to do. And there's one of the errors. Actually, you could have seen the change here. Let me press F12 here, and this is really neat. If you press F12, you will notice I pressed button 3 but not button 4. So what it does, it looks for the latest function in here. So once I press it, it puts it here in the console. It says button 4 was pressed. That's not true. I pressed button 3. Why does it do that? You can see it over here. I haven't changed the title of the function. So to fix it, I'm going to change the title of the function, which I did over here to button 4. I refresh the page, and you'll notice also to bring up this console, you have to press the F12 key. So you end up with this, you press the F12 key, and you should be able to see this console. The reason why I'm able to see this text is you will see this most likely, the elements thing. So you need to go to sources, and here find your 1-js-hello world.js, basically your .js file. That's what you want to open, which is what I have open right here. And that's pretty much the file that we're using. And you might have noticed that I just now changed it to button 4. So now here is, so remember how I mentioned we're going to use the console log for this? Well, this is where the fun begins actually. The console log is this section right here, this beautiful console looking like thing. You could in theory write your code here, but I wouldn't suggest it. Yes, it is a method that you could use, but I wouldn't suggest it. So watch what happens if I press button 4 this time. Look over here, I press button 4. It says button 4 was pressed. And from which file it was called, which was on line 11 in our JavaScript hello world file. That's how you read this thing. So line 11, which is over here in our JavaScript hello world file, which is in fact true. It prints out button 4 was pressed, just like we've said here. And that's pretty much the basics of outputting text in JavaScript. There's also a print function, but that's only if you want to print out text. In the next video, we're most likely going to cover statements and code blocks. In fact, that's what, well, let me actually have a look. Yeah, we've pretty much defined statements basically. Statements are basically those values, operators and such. I'm going to touch upon those in the next video, but basically what you need to know is this line right here, for example. Actually, it's better if I open the second editor, isn't it? Pretty much what a statement is, this is a statement. This is a statement, and this is a statement, and this is a statement as well. So just remember that. You can remember that till the next week's video. but this is where I'm going to leave it off. I wasn't expecting to talk for so long about the basics of JavaScript in the first video, but we're going to cover statements in the next one, along with a bit of syntax and comments, because it's really important to know how to use these things if you want to write something better. We can also use operators and such, but I'm going to cover statements, syntax, and variables in the next one. So till then, make sure to stay safe, have fun, and share this video around if it was helpful. I'm putting quite a bit of work into this. So I'm going to see you all next time. Bye!